Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Mache, and I welcome you on our very first customized bug scrub call. And I'm actually not going to be your host today, and that will be Katrina. So, Katrina, take it away from here.
Thanks, Mache. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this customized bug scrub. Today, we are going to largely use the lovely triage party instance that Eddie has set up to go through the issues that have the needs triage label. I'll drop a link in the chat to that board. Oh, Eddie's already dropped it. There we go. But before we get started on that, are there any pressing customized issues that anyone wants to bring up for us to look at?
Maybe one suggestion. You want to share your screen, Katrina?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Am I able to? Let's see. Yes, I am. Excellent.
Yes, you should be.
All right. Is that weirdly looking like half of my screen, or do I need to do this, for example?
Now it fills the entire wide screen of mine, and before it was half of that.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it like this then.
It's perfectly fine.
Great. All right. So does anyone have an issue that they wanted to discuss before we get started on the list? I had an old one that has been hanging around in the back of my mind that I wanted to bring up. It might also appear on the list, but this is one that has a moderate number of thumbs up, and it's echoing a request that has been made before, where they have data inside a config map, and they want to be able to have patches merge that data. That is not something that we'd usually want to do, because you can't assume that there's structured data inside just a string field. But it is true that it's very common for config maps to contain structured data like this. For example, I'm aware of some ingress implementations, some popular ingress implementations that do that. So I was wondering what our thoughts are on this, because it's been waiting for a response for a long time, and it has some attention on it. I'll drop a link in, figure out how to get back to the, there we go. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Can you go back up to the top again?
Yes.
Sorry. Oof. My initial thought is yuck, in the sense that, but maybe that's not my final thought, but my initial thought is config maps are kind of, it's healthy to think of them as being just holders of opaque data. But I don't know, this might be, it might be doable. I mean, certainly it's doable if somebody wants to spend some time on it. It's got 27 upvotes, huh?
Wow. On the old one and 12 on the new one. I'm not sure if there were only these two issues. I think it's been brought up before. And
do you know what the use case is for this? Because is it some sort of hack that people are using config maps to store YAML inside and then extract it for some other purpose, or?
I mean, you could characterize it as a hack, but I think it's a common pattern. It would be a more generous way to phrase it. So I think, like I said, there's some ingress implementations that I've seen do this. I'd have to dig around to remember what exactly, but I've definitely seen this myself.
They are basically mentioning that they are keeping configuration as JSON or as YAML. I can speak for what we do in OpenShift, and we have a little rely on the fact that we store some configuration in the config maps. But my initial response probably would be along the lines of Jeff, because the container here is the config map. Whatever is inside of the config map, it should rather be orthogonal to the config map itself. So I would probably, can we push this back as, I'm throwing here ideas. Can we push this back as a customized plugin? I'm not sure if customize, how far, I'm not a super pro customize user. So maybe we could approach this if people are interested, and maybe they could submit a plugin and see how useful that will be. And then we can eventually revisit that decision and include that as a default. I remember
it's not as easy to do as it should be right now. Like there's no crew equivalent for customize, so like it wouldn't actually get much usage. I wouldn't expect right now.
I mean, I think if somebody wanted to explore this, they could. My just to reiterate and emphasize what Mancha just said and what I said earlier is that the data is supposed to be, it's opaque in the sense that you can't really address a YAML object inside config map using, for example, a JSON path. Like we don't say a config map has to maintain, it could be anything, you know, it can be your mom's, a letter to your mom, it could be anything. So somebody would have to, I would want to hear what the use case is and try to figure out if there's some other way to approach it. Like if somebody's using it to store Kubernetes YAML or something and then extract it and use it in some other Kubernetes context, that'd be pretty weird. So yeah, off the top of my head, I'd want to hear somebody come and present a use case for this that we could talk about.
I think this was part of the presentation that was made about customize at a big SIG CLI meeting a while ago. If you remember, this individual came and was making the case for a bunch of features for, I think it's mentioned in the issue, Kubeflow. Yeah, Kubeflow. Yeah, and the person was willing to contribute for these features that they felt strongly about. I'm pretty sure this was one of them. I agree 100% that in theory, the data is opaque, but in practice, people are using it for this a lot. It's very easy to mount a config map into your environment or as a file, and that makes it a very easy way for applications that are using structured configuration to get that configuration into the application. It's just, I'm not saying it's a great idea, but I think it is fairly common. And we definitely should not assume that the data in the config map is structured 100%. That would be a terrible idea. But I think they're not necessarily asking for that. It would work if they were able to tell us that such and such a field should be patched.
My objection is based on purely the idea that I want to hear what the problem is a little bit more, because I'd approach this from well, why can't we use a generator for this to generate something specific that has parameters in it rather than try to patch an existing config map. So in other words, they're coming with here's an implementation of how I'd like to solve the problem, and I'd like to hear more about the problem first, you know, and approach it from a generator point of view. Maybe we can, like in the language of components, you could edit the generator arguments before the thing generates the config map and maybe achieve the same effect, rather than trying to dig into config maps and treat their data as YAML that we're going to parse.
Right. They're definitely saying that they need, I guess, one reason why they might be reaching for a patch is that conceptually they have a base config and a change that they want to make to it in a different layer.
Right.
So I understand why conceptually that maps to the base and patch. Are you saying that if they built a generator, they could get that same effect by modifying the generator config?
Right. Yeah.
In the overlay?
Yeah.
Okay. I can assign this to myself and leave a comment asking for more information and sort of explaining what we just discussed. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, so unless there's another issue someone wants to bring up, we can get started with the triage board here. here we have replacements, cannot target field names, require coding. This is about.
You can just, or I'll triage this one. This one is just documentation. Don't worry about it. I'll triage it today and write the documentation.
Is this the feature that we fixed recently, like in the latest release?
It was released with, like, whenever replacements were released. I just didn't add it to the documentation.
Okay. So we should also, would you mind retitling it as well? Thanks. Awesome. Is this one similar, or is this one a real bug? It's about replacements again. Do not work with fields that were set.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about this. So these people are requesting in a base can refer to resources in overlays. So they're requesting breaking the encapsulation of the customization for replacements. And I mean, obviously that's not what we want to do, but I wasn't sure how to address their problem.
Mm. Let's see. There's a lot of detail here. Have you already sort of understood the problem that you could provide a quick summary, Natasha?
Yeah, what I said is the summary. So for vars, the vars transformer ran like last, so it was able to, like, a var defined in the base was able to refer to resources in parent overlays, and they're requesting the same thing for replacements.
Right, and what is the use case? Like, why are they unable to achieve the same result without breaking encapsulation? Like, is it just too verbose, or is this something that's genuinely impossible?
Let's see. So if you read the second to last comment, the guy describes a more specific use case. They're trying to express that an environment variable's value should point to this service, and that service is defined in a parent, and they want to use that value rather than a value in base.
They wanted to find the value in a parent in an overlay.
Yes, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that would require processing in the last stage, as was done with the vars. And
that was one of our reasons for wanting to remove vars. So.
Yeah, well, the primary one was not having the dollar variables in there. But yeah.
Yeah, I really don't want to reintroduce that global, like that works differently than all the other fields, complicates the mental model, and I would really rather not.
It kind of breaks the pipeline.
Yeah.
And so in our response, do we just tell them that this is out of scope, like Kustomize doesn't support this?
You could explain why, and here's why it breaks, or here's what the drawbacks are, and leave it open as a Okay, mine, I would leave it open and think about if it'd be okay to do that. I'm not fully understanding the problem at this point, so I don't want to close it right off the bat. Maybe explaining why it doesn't feel right with respect to the pipeline, and see if that closes the issue. I'm not sure right off the top of my head though if it does.
Okay.
I was looking this morning into the anchor issue, so that was my focus, and I didn't read this one in advance.
That's all right.
Or we can talk about the anchor issue. I didn't see it on the list.
Yeah, that one has had a lot of discussion. I think you responded this morning, so the filters wouldn't bring that in. Do you have a quick link to it you could drop in the chat?
No, I looked into it and started when I was writing a unit test to document it. Realized that there's probably a decent way to fix it on the KML side, so I want to explore that a little bit more. I think we can fix it, but there are some edge cases in here where if you mix replacements with anchors, you're probably going to run into some trouble. But I think I can send a PR out that will expand the anchors. I'm just debating whether or not I want to expand the anchors before I expand everything else. Because that's the problem is the use case of mixing anchor replacements with customized style replacements. So anyway, I'll send a PR out, but I just wanted to comment that I took the bug, I assigned the bug since I am now familiar with what the problem is.
Okay.
And I'll work on it.
Great. Yeah, for context, this is a very popular problem that didn't exist in the older version of Kustomize. It came with the conversion to KYAML. And we had sort of solicited feedback from the users about how important this was to them. And given that Kustomize has a lot of different ways of well, creating and composing configuration, and a lot of people chimed in after we asked, and you see the scroll here with lots of thumbs up on the comments about this being important. Sorry, my dog is barking.
Lots of people use YAML anchors, it turns out. So yeah, I think we can make it work.
One thing that you had mentioned, Jeff, was that you thought one of the common use cases, which was patching containers with a shared patch between different types of or different kinds of resources. You were saying that was possible using a customized native mechanism. And that was one of the primary objections on here. So I think it could still be useful to comment with that if it was proved true that it could be addressed that way. Sorry, did that make sense?
I'll do that. I want to. It did make sense, yes. So if people are primarily using anchors to, like, say, expand either container instances inside a pod template, or expand pod templates inside different things like deployments or replica sets or cron jobs or whatnot, I think that using customized mechanisms to do that is probably better than trying to use the anchors, because anchors are just, weirder and harder to maintain. But I think what I want to do is get a fix in place for getting. I think there is a way to get anchors to work before Kustomize processing begins. Just basically expand all the anchors and see if that solves the problem. And that might not solve the problem for some edge cases. So we can iterate on this for a while. It may take a couple of releases to get to a place where we're all comfortable with mixing anchors and Kustomize replacements. Like maybe we do anchors last. Obviously, if somebody has a patch that has an anchor in it, doing anchors first won't work. So I'll take it. I'll throw out a fix that does the anchors first, and see how that flies, and we can hash out where we expect the anchors to be expanded, first or last.
For the YAML spec, is it?
Did that make any sense?
Mostly, just one question you mentioned, like it wouldn't work if it was in a patch. Are you talking about cross-document anchor references, and is that even supported in the spec?
So if let's say a patch had an anchor in it, there'd be no way we wouldn't be able to expand the anchors first. So like when we read a document, right? When we read any documents, we could go ahead and replace any anchors right off the bat. There might be dangling pointers effectively because like if the target of the anchor, if the reference is in an overlay, it's not going to work. This is why I actually don't like this mixing of these two concepts. But for simple cases, like in one document where an anchor is referring to some reference that's in the same doc, then expanding the anchors right away would work fine.
Right. So my question is if the thing that wouldn't work easily is that's even supported by the YAML spec, because if you don't feed the complete document that has the reference and the source in it, then how is that supposed to work? It seems intuitive to me that all we would need is the first thing that will work easily.
That's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to do the first thing that will work easily, which is expand the anchors locally. It's just if somebody was expecting this to work in a patch and work across patches, then it's not going to fly. So we'll see how it goes. I'll put out a PR. We'll do a release and see what kind of feedback we get on the issue. We'll keep the issue open for a while.
Great. I will accept that then, if that's all right.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah.
I assigned it to myself already, so.
Great. I think they'll be very happy to hear that result. Thanks for taking a look. Let's see. We have one more new issue here. Problem with customized build. May not add resource with an already registered ID.
Yeah, I just read this issue and it looks like they're referencing the same base from two different overlays without changing the name. So I think that this error is expected. I can assign it to myself and respond to them.
Great, thank you. All right, so we now have some older ones that we can look at that are missing the label. It's possible in this case because just as a note, this repo didn't use the needs triage label until, I don't know, a month ago. So it's possible that some of these have been triaged and will be, just need the label to be applied. So let's see. Just gonna scroll down to the bottom. No, this one is genuinely untriaged. Unable to run customized build on remote base in GitLab. It works with kube control kustomize, which, well, they'll need to tell us which version. Oh, there's an error.
Yeah, so if the error is like a index out of range thing, that's bad. That shouldn't happen. I was thinking this might be, oh, we don't recognize GitHub URLs, or sorry, GitLab URLs, but.
There was another issue in Kustomize for index out of range, and someone submitted a PR to fix it, so it might be fixed.
They're using Kustomize 4.2, so actually this issue can't be that old.
Oh, never mind.
Isn't that using HTTPS over the Git URL? Because he's clearly using HTTPS, his company, Git, whatever, instead of the Git add, whatever.
Well, right. The problem looks like it's in repo spec, and
yeah,
this looks just like a horrible kind of bug in the parsing. Regardless, the error message should be better. It shouldn't fail on index out of range. It should be something like, you know, you could start off with, well, we don't recognize this GitLab URL, and then later add support for GitLab URLs. Does that make sense?
Sure. As in, like this isn't actually supported right now, but
I don't think so. No. but the error message is horrible. So we could accept this on the basis of fixing the not failing with an index out of range.
Right. What about the claim that it used to work with kube control kustomize? Is that related to
I don't buy that, but I don't see how they could work with kube kustomize and fail and kustomize native.
Okay. Like it could be a super old version, right?
It might be really, yeah, it might be really, it might date back to like something that used the, what was that dependence that brought in all the HashiCorp go-getter thing? That might have actually worked. So maybe it did work at one point and we had to take it out because of the go-getter couldn't be used in, see, go-getter can't be used in kubectl, so I don't see how that could possibly work in the kubectl version of kustomize, but.
But we should fail
Fix the error message for sure.
Yeah. There we go.
This could be a help wanted too, because at least get it to the point where it doesn't fail on the index out of range thing. Oh, nice.
I'm not sure if I got the syntax right, but
Could that add a help wanted label? That'd be great.
Eddie, do you know if I did that wrong? Because the bot didn't answer really quickly.
I think it might be just /help.
Let's see. I'll get the hang of this eventually. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And that, yeah, should add the label. Yeah, there it is. Excellent. And nice refreshed. Yeah, the PRs section is properly populated. Yay, thanks, Eddie.
Yep. So just so people know, those filters are all ANDed. So they're not, I had to put ORs inside of a single string. That's what it was.
Mm. Good to know. All right. So plugin not configurable. This one, Natasha, you said kind support, so you've had a look at this one potentially?
I looked at it briefly. I didn't get very far, but it sounds like they just have a question. I can take a closer look at it later.
Okay, I can assign it to you.
Okay.
Great. Cannot unmarshal number into go struct field image tags new tag of type string. So they have an integer like tag, well, not integer, but a number like tag, and YAML is thinking that that's a number, not a string. I think this is a pretty classic problem. Does anyone have any insight? Like I'm pretty sure putting quotes around that would work just fine, but do we consider this a bug that is this at all fixable on our side?
Well, we could always special case it, but I would suggest putting in quotes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Because it's happening at the unmarshalling stage, right? We have a thing that's tagged. It's tagged. It is a string, and it gets unmarshaled right into that field. We would have to, I don't know, load it separately into an R node maybe, and then tag the field with an explicit string tag, and then re-unmarshal it back into here. I think it would be very hacky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if the person could contribute a KYAML unit test showing this, that'd be a big help.
Would we be willing to do a fix like that? I'm sure this is legitimate. I've seen issues like this before. I don't actually really doubt that would be happening.
Yeah, it's just that if we had the unit test, we could point to it if this gets filed again and again and again, and say this is the reason why, and see, and also make sure the quotes solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You could close it. You could say quote it and close it. But I'd love to see somebody add a unit test about this.
Contribute a unit test for reducing this. As a workaround, quoting the tag, or yeah, should get around the issue.
Yeah.
Please let us know if that is not the case. Sound good?
Yep. I wonder if the Go YAML looks at that E and decides to treat it as an int. Weird that it would do that, but maybe it does.
Apparently, I don't know what the triage needs information. And then turn that manually. There. Patch removing fields for cron job batch v1.
Removing fields.
Removing fields.
Okay, so it looks like they want to add to a cron job some environment variables in the container spec, right?
Yeah.
And then in resources, there's a cron job, okay, with containers.
Name test, so it's the same one.
And the expected output
the new one
has
at
some
the top.
new value. Okay, some new value, right? Okay. And what's the actual output? A lot of stuff gone.
It's not being merged. So
it's replacing the entire list of environment variables, it looks like.
I would probably start with checking because that's part of the pod spec specifically. I would check what's the merge strategy on the containers field in Q. Because if I remember correctly, you have the entire Open API embedded in Kustomize.
That's right, yeah.
And that contains the information about how you are working with those.
This is kind of suspicious too. It's apparently if they change it to batch v1 beta 1, it patches fine. Could we be missing the Open API for batch v1 cron job? Is there any chance we're that out of date in what we've embedded?
Yeah, write that in a comment. That's the thing to investigate. Look at the difference in the Open API specs for the v1 beta 1 and v1. And see what the merge rule is for containers. It looks like it's just doing a replacement.
I just checked the merge strategy for containers is name. The key is name, strategy is merge. So theoretically, it should work. It might be the problem of v1 beta 1 versus v1 in cron job, because that was promoted in the last release 121. Yeah, it's a brand new API that I managed to promote finally. after years
Thank
of being in beta.
Congrats, Monte.
I'll assign this to myself as well. And yeah, I'll accept it. That should work, definitely should work. All right. Helm chart inflation generator. This is a source of issues. Lately. Let's see. Oh, here's the link.
Too strict. Mapping key restart policy already defined in line 17. Huh.
This might be related to, like, there was a KYAML panics on duplicate keys issue. So we changed it to throw an error instead. So I think that's the issue. There's a duplicate key and we're throwing an error.
So it's invalid YAML then?
Are duplicate keys not allowed in YAML?
They're not allowed in the sense that one is going to overwrite the other when you unmarshal it, if I remember correctly. So you're saying there's another issue already about this?
Or there was an issue, KYAML panics on duplicate keys, but that's been closed because we throw an error instead. But yeah, looking at their YAML, there is a duplicate key. So if this is invalid, then we can just tell them that.
According to the spec, the first one should be taken into account and follow up.
So
ignored.
If this is valid YAML, this is a problem with the Go YAML library. Like, the Go YAML library is the thing panicking when there's duplicate keys. So I'm not sure what we can do about that.
So we caught the panic from Go YAML, rescued it, generated this error.
Yeah.
So I guess what are our options here? We can tell, well, we should tell them. The problem is the duplicate key has nothing to do with the Helm generator in particular. But then we could direct them to open an issue on Go YAML, or we could offer to open it ourselves.
Actually, I just found a Go YAML issue, and according, I think that might be the author of the library. According to 1.2 spec, keys are unique, period. So any changes in behavior at this point in time simply means a choice of which way to handle a broken document, and we're not going to change the handle of broken documents. So
would you mind dropping that issue in the chat so I can link to it here?
I already did.
Oh.
So
Monte is all over it.
Friends and close.
Great.
Yeah. Not going to handle broken documents.
Okay. The issue is but you know what? I'll type this up where duplicate issue, and I will submit the comment later, so you don't all have to watch me type. Okay, load restrictors none is not files.
You can I can take a look at this because I'm familiar with the load restriction stuff. Feel free to assign it to me.
Great. Oh, someone's trying to build an old version of Kustomize. Is that supported? I guess we maintain those release branches. Natasha asks if they need to use the older version.
And they're trying to do this at head?
No, 310, it looks like. I imagine they're checking out the release branch, right? How else would they try to build 310 unless I'm not aware of some mechanism?
Right.
I'm guessing the problem might be that I can't remember how Kustomize handles this, but I think in some depths we are uploading them live instead of using the vendor directories, which might be causing problems because it might be picking some newer version of some directories.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't we don't maintain tests to make sure this sort of thing works.
Right.
Yeah.
So a temporary solution that I could probably suggest is replacing some of the libraries, maybe with a commit ID and try to re-vendor those and then build locally. Yeah, it might be tricky. But I'm pretty confident that we can nicely respond that this is not maintained by the community and just close it as such.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do want to switch to vendoring in general. I think there's an issue for that because we want to be cognizant of the depths being pulled in because kubectl does that. So we need to do the same thing kubectl's doing.
It seems a little bit excessive initially, but in the long run, and if you're thinking about repetitive or whatever the name is, basically that you have a stable output from given input, which is basically one of the security concerns. The vendor.
I mean, reproducible builds, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. That's the word that I was actually looking for instead of repetitive. I was looking for reproducible builds. But yes, that's the goal.
Yeah, older releases aren't. I suspect that dependence needs to be pinned. Then, yeah, if I could find the vendoring issue, it would be nice to link to that. I do remember that existing. Is it this one, Jeff? The screen?
Yeah, it's that one. Likely start using GoMod vendor. Maybe the issue, because the problem we want to solve here is understanding the transitive depths. And if you vendor, then all the transitive depths get pulled in and they become visible as part of a pull request. So it's.
And then you can basically identify how many additional changes you're bringing in, whether there are some conflicting changes. And on top of that, you can also verify the licenses of the dependencies. So basically, all of that what Kube is already doing on every dependency. And I'm pretty sure that Eddie can speak about it because he went through the hassle of updating at least several dependencies in the past.
Yeah, I'm actually in the progress of updating Cobra again, which is going to take
I've
quite a
seen
while.
that one.
It's the transitive dependencies are always what cost the most time, and this time something changed with one of the Google Cloud SDKs where they changed the path of a resource request, and that broke a whole bunch of tests that were like stubbing out that path or something. So it's been a journey.
I guess triage not an issue is what this would be. I don't know. I guess if it's closed, it doesn't need a triage specifically. Are we okay with this message? Old releases aren't maintained by the community. We suspect that dependency needs to be pinned.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Close the comment. Yeah.
I guess I double closed it to ask the bot to close it as well.
It's super closed.
It will get automatically closed when it gets reopened.
Oh, that's funny.
Sounds interesting. Okay.
What was the last comment on this? Is there any follow-up from anybody on this, or is it
just a test, which perhaps someone's commented over here? You did.
Yeah, it looks vaguely familiar. Sorry.
So here's the demonstration, I guess.
Oh, and is this, oh, right. So I remember the last time I looked at this, the test was failing. And I asked the person here to create a passing test that shows the incorrect behavior to prove that this actually exists. So I think we're still sort of waiting for that to happen.
Okay.
Because this, yeah, I didn't understand how that could possibly happen.
Update the PR to pass with to
exhibiting the problem, to pass tests that show the problem.
All right.
Yep.
Interesting. Support Golang IOFS. Interesting. Yeah, we need more information about what they mean. I'm at a guess they want this to be injectable in the customized build Go code.
They want to use embed somehow. Well, I like Eddie's comment.
Yeah.
What are they trying to do?
Yeah, the bot will close this soon if they don't respond. You can just leave it alone.
Okay, I'll label it here so that it doesn't create activity. Edit, add resource, deletes comments. That kind of makes sense. Jeff, do you know if we're still using the SIG YAML at the entry point for this one? We do for a customized build, I'm pretty sure.
I don't, I think we would be using the same thing for both for build and edit. So I would think that kustomize should be preserving the comments.
In general, we're using KYAML, which does preserve the comments, but I thought I saw that at the very initial point where we load the customization, it still uses a SIG's YAML.
I don't remember. You might be right.
I think there could be, maybe this is something we'd be willing to do, but since the KYAML, the V3 is implementing 1.2 spec, there are some minor differences, such as Boolean interpretation, that would actually potentially cause a change if we change the entry point to unmarshal with the different version of YAML effectively. Yeah, this is using unmarshal, which is YAML to JSON. So that, yeah, that's the SIG's YAML library. That's what they're saying here too. Yeah, it breaks many tests. I'm sure it's still an issue on Kustomize but it would be nice if they confirmed it, I suppose.
Well, it doesn't take long to read the customization file. We could read it both ways, and see if that the marshaled object, sorry, the unmarshaled object has, you know, discrepancies and is equal from a reflection point of view. That would tell us if bools are being interpreted incorrectly or something.
And fall back.
And then we could just fail, and then we could report. We could just fail and say, hey, fix your bools. One way to deal with it. I like Eddie's question.
Yeah, we could do a needs information on this one as well, even though, yeah, I suspect it's still an issue, just based on the code base.
Yeah, I suspect so.
Oh, white space. This, at a glance, sounds like the issue that we recently fixed, but it's talking about KYAML specifically. So KYAML, right? KYAML would have flipped from one style to the other, and now it's pinned, and now it's also configurable. So I'm pretty sure that it will be solved in the next release. Yeah, I'll assign this to myself and like find the cross-reference issues, because the current release doesn't have the configuration parameters, but it does have the revert to the more customized preferred style. So I'll go track down that information. Instantiation of resources.
Hey, we're almost past 10. Oh. I'm gonna have to bail it in 1 minute or 2 minutes for 10 o'clock.
All right, yeah, that's a good point.
Enough for the day?
Yeah, I think that's enough. We got through a lot of issues. I think this is really great. Yeah. This is my first time ever running a bug scrub or a meeting in general, so if you have any feedback, I'd be eager to hear it.
You did great. Thanks very much, Katrina. Thank you very much all for attending this call, and see you next week in SIG CLI. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.